Venezuela remains in some chaos today. The country's opposition leader continues his effort to topple Nicolas Maduro's autocratic government. Trace Gallagher has been tracking all the developments down there for us tonight, and he joins us now. Hey, Trace.
And Tucker, throughout the day, thousands of people still gathered on the streets of Caracas demanding the ouster of Nicolas Maduro, but so far there is little evidence to show the balance of power has shifted toward the U.S.-backed opposition leader Juan Guaido. Because despite having the support of the United States and 50 other nations, Guaido has been unable to secure the loyalty of top military leaders. And some of those leaders went on television last night proclaiming their loyalty to Nicolas Maduro, although the Trump administration believes many of those military leaders are just covering their tracks. And the predictions of mass defections have also yet to materialize, though the director of Venezuela's intelligence agency did break ranks with Maduro late yesterday. Today, Juan Guaido addressing his supporters, urging them to ramp up the pressure. It's in Spanish, so read the captions. Watch. Yeah, close to achieving it. National Security Advisor John Bolton thinks Maduro is still being propped up by the Russians and the Cubans. Listen.
And I think the key point here is that if this afternoon 20 to 25,000 Cubans left Venezuela, I think Maduro would fall by midnight.
But if Maduro does not fall, and if the uprising fails, Plan B is very unclear at this point. Tucker.
Trace, thanks a lot for that. So Venezuela's pretty rotten government has been in power for a long time, and it's been able to pull that off in part because it rules over a population that is not armed. The only people with guns in Venezuela are members of the military or criminal gangs, sometimes working for the government. Law-abiding citizens are at their mercy. Yesterday, even MSNBC had to admit this because it's true.
You have to understand, in Venezuela, gun ownership is not something that is open to everybody. So if the military have the guns, they have the power. And as long as Nicolas Maduro controls the military, he controls the country.
David Cotwell is the research director of the Independence Institute, and he joins us tonight. So this is one of those ideas that is now floating around in the Democratic primary, as you're aware. Eric Swalwell, running for president, has said it out loud. Let's just take the guns away from the population. Here we have kind of a case study in what it looks like when that happens, Venezuela. Tell us how that population got disarmed.
In 2012, the legislature passed, and then in 2013 was implemented what amounted to a gun ban. It sort of had the appearance of a change in the licensing system, but it basically prohibited people from acquiring arms. And then in 2013, the dictator Maduro also announced that all gun stores would be closed. So it's impossible for anyone to legally acquire a firearm or ammunition. And the Venezuelan government also has the sort of the same theory that you see when people talk about gun buybacks in the United States, as if the government owned the gun and then is going to buy them back from citizens. In Venezuela, the law actually says all guns are owned by the government, and the government can recuperate them, as they say, at any time. And that is why people are defenseless against what you mentioned before, the colectivos, about 400,000 criminal gangsters trained by the Cuban government and by the FARC terrorists from Colombia. They really run many regions of the country in practice as a organized crime extortion group.
But if ordinary people don't have guns at home, it must be an incredibly safe country. That's the promise of gun control, right? Is it an incredibly safe country?
It has the second highest murder rate in the world, behind only Honduras. It's an incredibly dangerous country, and it was dangerous before the gun law was passed in 2012. But things seem to keep getting worse and worse. I mean, the Chavez Maduro regimes have always been kleptocracies, basically based on running the government as an organized crime syndicate for the principle of theft, and that has has infected a lot of society. It's a terribly dangerous place.
So, I mean, I'm starting to think that a lot of the precepts of American gun control schemes may not be right then. if you take guns out of the hands of most people, your society doesn't get safer. It turns out that the government may turn against you, actually, if you can't fight back against them. Is there any upside to gun control in Venezuela that I'm missing?
Well, Maduro said he was doing it for the children. This was a youth-led movement to disarm the public. But you see the dangers of what happens when the government becomes more powerful than the people. Then it's like you've thrown the fire extinguisher out of your house, and you're dependent on the other checks and balances, and he destroyed those as well.
He was doing it for the children. I didn't even know that. That is such a great detail, and a detail I will never forget. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks for having
Good
me.
to see you, David.